So this is the grade 8 eye dissection for light and optics. So some of the parts that you want to be aware of, first of all, you have the optic nerve in the back, which sends the signals to the brain. We have the cornea on the front, some of the fat, which protects the eyeball in the socket, and the muscle, which helps move the eye so you can look up, down, and around. So first step, we need to trim away any of the fat and muscle so we can have a better look at the structures. So you will feel the firm roundness of the eyeball. So just around that you will see looser parts of fat, the whiter and the darker muscle. Just trim that away so you have better access and sight to the eye itself. Step is to cut into the cornea, making a small incision. Obviously being careful not to cut into your hand. Scalpels are sharp, so making a small incision in the cornea. And the cornea is the first spot where the light will refract in the eye. And then we want to cut enough so the aqueous humor, which is the fluid inside, is allowed to come out. Next step now is to make an incision into the sclera. The sclera is the white covering around the eye. Don't confuse that with the fat. It's just a thin sheet of white around the eye. So we'll cut in so that we can observe the inner structure. That the eyeball itself is fairly rigid, holds its shape. It's not going to collapse. Alright. So now inside the eye we see a few of the structures. We have the vitreous humor, which is more of a jelly-like substance. It assists in holding the shape of the eye. You can differentiate between the vitreous humor and the aqueous humor. Aqueous, aqua, kind of like water, so it's very watery, where the vitreous humor is more of a jelly-like substance. In the back we see the tapetum, which helps to, in night vision, reflecting light once it's entered the eye. So if we remove the vitreous humor, and very jelly-like, we see the lens now here. As well as the lens, we have the iris, which is the darker coloring around the inside of the eye. If we remove the lens, you can see that it's actually, it almost feels like plastic. It's quite rigid. It's quite a rigid structure. And then inside again we have the pupil. Now the pupil is just a hole. There's actually nothing there, and it again adjusts. It'll become larger and smaller depending on the light within the room. Half of the eye, and I've just turned it inside out, so just pushing it inside out, and you have the now inside structure more accessible, and again trying to peel away without ripping it too much. The outside edges should come away fairly easy, and you'll find it's kind of connected here with the smaller muscles in the eye. And there you have it. So again, you can see the hole, the pupil, quite clearly there. And again, the pupil is not a structure so much as just a space, a hole where light can enter. So again, this is the rear of the eye, the optic nerve in the back. So if we again use that technique of turning it inside out, this one's a lot more muscular, so it might be a little tougher to do. But turning inside out, again, This is the inside, and this is the tapetum. And we see a bit of the optic nerve on the inside of the eye. And if we are, again, try to peel this guy off. So just to review some of the parts again, we have the aqueous, or pardon me, the vitreous humor, which is this sort of jelly-like substance. We have the pupil, the iris, which is a muscle, and that helps to contract and expand the pupil. We have the tapetum, again, which helps in night vision to reflect light. In the rear of the eye, we have the inside of the optic nerve, and the rear is quite obvious, the optic nerve in the back. And then on the front of the eye again, we have the cornea, and you can still see part of the muscle connection around the outside. And then finally again the lens, which is again very hard and plastic-like. Just a few reminders. Obviously you're using scalpels. Scalpels are very sharp. Be careful not to cut into your hand or any other part of your body. So when you're holding the eye, obviously you don't want to cut this way. If you can, you want to cut this way. So if there's a slip, you're not going to hit any of your fingers or hands. Also, of course, everyone's remembering to wear their eye goggles. You don't want to get any cow juice in your own eye. And gloves is probably a good safety measure. Again, probably some of you don't want to get this stuff on your hands. So be safe, have fun, and learn a little bit about the eye.